The dust on Willa Whitmore's hands was from her mother's grave, not the road. When she realized the silence back at the ranch felt wrong. She had been kneeling there in the small cemetery outside Dallas, Texas for 3 hours that September morning in 1878, talking to the wooden cross like her mama could still hear every word, telling her about the cattle doing well and the new foal, and how lonely the house felt without her laugh echoing through it. The sun had been merciless, beating down on her black mourning dress until sweat traced paths through the cemetery dust on her face. But Willa had not moved, had not wanted to leave because leaving meant accepting that Mama was really gone, had been gone for exactly 1 month today. The ride back to the ranch took 40 minutes, and Willa noticed the silence before she even dismounted from her mare. No chickens clucking, no dog barking a greeting. The front door hung open, and that was when her heart started hammering against her ribs hard enough to hurt. She ran inside and stopped so abruptly her boots skidded on the wooden floor. Everything was gone. The rocking chair Mama had brought from Virginia. The table where 3 generations of Whitmores had eaten their meals. The iron stove. The quilts. The photographs. The deed to the ranch that had been in her family for 20 years. Even the curtains had been torn from the windows, leaving the rooms naked and violated. Willa walked through the house in a daze, her footsteps echoing in the emptiness. They had taken the bedroom furniture, the kitchen supplies, the food from the pantry, her mother's jewelry box, her father's rifle that had hung over the mantel, everything. She found herself in what had been her bedroom, staring at the blank space where her bed had stood, and something inside her cracked, not broke, because she would not let herself break, but cracked enough that a sound came out of her throat that was neither a sob nor a scream, but something in between. She pressed her fist against her mouth and forced herself to breathe, to think. The barn. She ran outside and her legs nearly gave out when she saw it. Empty stalls. They had taken all 4 horses except the mare she had ridden to the cemetery, the 2 cows, the chickens, even the tack and saddles, the tools, the wagon, the hay, everything that was not nailed down, and some things that had been. Willa walked back to the house on legs that felt like water and sat down on the porch steps because there was nowhere else to sit. She put her head in her hands and tried to understand what had just happened, tried to make sense of it. Someone had watched her leave this morning, had waited until she was gone, had known she would be at the cemetery for hours because everyone in Dallas knew the Whitmores, knew her mama had died, knew today was the 1-month anniversary. The sun was starting its descent toward the horizon when she heard hoofbeats. Willa stood up fast, her hand instinctively reaching for a gun that was no longer there because they had taken that too. But it was just 1 horse, and the man riding it wore a dusty brown hat pulled low and sat in the saddle like he had been born there. He reined in at the edge of her property and studied the scene, his eyes moving from the empty barn to the stripped house to Willa standing on the porch with dirt on her mourning dress and devastation in her eyes. He was young, maybe 25, with sun-darkened skin and a jaw that looked like it had been carved from granite. Even from a distance, she could see his eyes were an unusual light brown, almost gold in the late afternoon sun. "You are Willa Whitmore," he said. It was not a question. His voice was low and rough, like he did not use it much. "I am," she said, lifting her chin, "and you are on my property." "Wade Vance," he said, touching the brim of his hat. "I have the ranch 5 miles west of here. I was riding back from town when I saw a wagon, 6 of them, loaded heavy. They were headed north fast." Willa's heart kicked. "When?" 2 hours ago, maybe less." He dismounted in one fluid motion and walked closer, his boots crunching on the dry earth. "I did not think much of it until I saw your place. They took everything?" "Everything." The word came out bitter. "I was at my mother's grave. Someone knew I would be gone." Wade looked at the house again, his expression unreadable. "You got family? Somewhere you can go?" "No." Willa wrapped her arms around herself. "It was just Mama and me after Papa died. No brothers or sisters, no aunts or uncles close enough to matter." "Friends in town?" She almost laughed. The kind that will say how terrible this is over tea but would not take me in. I have this ranch. Mr. Vance had this ranch, and now I have nothing. She stopped, horrified to feel her eyes burning. She would not cry in front of a stranger, would not. Wade was quiet for a long moment, studying her with those strange gold eyes. Then he said, I can track them. Willa blinked. What? The men who did this. I can track them and get your things back. He said it like it was simple, like it was already decided. Why would you do that? Because it is not right, what they did. Wade adjusted his hat. And because I am good at tracking, learned from my grandmother. She was Kiowa. Willa stared at him, trying to find the catch, the angle, the reason a stranger would offer to help her. What do you want in return? Nothing, he said. Then, reconsidering, maybe a hot meal when I bring your things back, but that is not a condition. You do not even know me. I know someone stole from you while you were mourning your mother, Wade said, and there was an edge to his voice now, something hard and angry beneath the calm. That is all I need to know. Willa looked at this stranger, this Wade Vance with his mixed heritage and his quiet intensity and his completely inexplicable offer to help. She should say no. Should tell him she would handle this herself, though she had no idea how. Should protect what little pride she had left. But pride would not get her mother's jewelry box back, would not get the deed to the ranch back, would not get any of it back. All right, she said, but I'm coming with you. Wade's eyebrows rose. That is not a good idea. It is my property. I am coming. Miss Whitmore, these are men who robbed you blind while you were grieving. They are not going to be reasonable people. I do not care, Willa said, and she was surprised by the steel in her own voice. They took everything I have left of my parents, every single thing. I am not sitting here waiting while you ride off. I am coming with you. Or you can leave right now and I will track them myself. Wade looked like he wanted to argue, but something in her expression must have convinced him it would be pointless. He sighed. You got a gun? They took them all. He walked back to his horse and pulled a revolver from his saddlebag. You know how to shoot? My papa taught me when I was 12. Wade handed her the gun. We leave now. We can make up some ground before dark. You got supplies for the trail? They took all the food. Of course they did. He swung back into his saddle. Come on then. We will stop at my place, get what we need, and ride out. But Miss Whitmore, you do what I say when I say it. These men are dangerous, and I will not have your death on my conscience. Willa mounted her mare, the only horse they had left her, and followed Wade Vance away from her empty ranch. The sun was painting the Texas sky orange and purple, and somewhere ahead of them, thieves were hauling away her entire life in stolen wagons. But for the first time since she had walked into that violated house, Willa felt something other than helplessness. She felt fury, sharp and clean and clarifying. And she felt something else too, something she could not quite name yet. Watching the way Wade sat his horse like he and the animal were one entity, the way his eyes scanned the horizon with predatory focus. Hope, maybe? Or trust? Or maybe just the beginning of something that would change everything. Wade's ranch was modest, a small house and barn that looked well-maintained but sparse. He was efficient, gathering supplies with the economical movements of someone who had done this many times before. Willa watched him pack food, water, ammunition, bedrolls. He caught her watching and paused. You should change, he said, nodding at her morning dress. You got riding clothes? At home, which is empty. Wade disappeared into his house and came back with a shirt and pants that looked like they would swallow her. My mother was about your size before she passed, kept some of her things. They will be too big, but better than a dress on the trail. Willa took the clothes, something tightening in her chest. Your mother? 3 years ago. Fever. He said it flatly, like he had learned not to put emotion into the words. You can change in the house. We ride in 10 minutes. The clothes were too big, and Willa had to roll the cuffs and cinch the pants with rope, but Wade was right. They were infinitely better than a dress. She braided her dark hair tight and pinned it up. then looked at herself in the small mirror by the door. She looked like a child playing dress up, but she also looked like someone who could ride hard and not fall apart. That would have to be enough. They rode north as the sun set, following the wagon tracks that were still visible in the dusty earth. Wade barely spoke, his attention focused on the trail, reading signs in the dirt that Willa could not see. Occasionally he would dismount and crouch down, touching the ground, studying the tracks with an intensity that was almost reverent. 6 men, he said as full dark settled, and they made camp in a small hollow protected from the wind. The wagons are heavy, moving slow. They have 8, maybe 10 hours on us, but we can move faster. If we push hard, we will catch them by tomorrow night. Willa sat on the bedroll he had spread for her, suddenly exhausted. The day felt 10 years long. How do you know there are 6 men? Boot prints. Wade was building a fire with practiced ease. 3 sets by the barn, 3 different sets by the house, all men based on the size and depth. And the way they worked, they knew what they were doing. This was not random. You think they were watching me? I think they knew exactly when to strike. Wade sat back on his heels as the fire caught. Anyone in town know you were going to the cemetery today? Willa thought about it. I told Mrs. Henderson at the general store yesterday when I bought flowers. She is friends with half of Dallas. Could have been anyone. Could have been. Wade pulled out hardtack and jerky, handing her a share. Or could have been someone who has been planning this for a while, waiting for the right moment. The idea made Willa's skin crawl. You mean they might have been waiting for my mother to die? Or just waiting for you to be vulnerable enough? Wade's jaw tightened. Either way, they are cowards. They ate in silence, the fire crackling between them. The night was cool, the stars so bright and numerous they looked like spilled salt across black cloth. Willa pulled the blanket Wade had given her tighter around her shoulders and studied him across the flames. His face was all shadows and angles, beautiful in a harsh way like the landscape itself. Why did you really stop? She asked. When you saw the wagons, you could have just kept riding. Wade was quiet for so long she thought he would not answer. Then he said, My mother and I, we had trouble after my father died. He was white, she was Kiowa. Some people in these parts did not like that much. Someone burned down our first house, took our horses. My mother rebuilt, started over. But it broke something in her, I think, knowing her neighbors hated her enough to do that. He looked up at Willa, and the firelight turned his eyes molten. I saw those wagons, and I knew what they meant. Someone's life being destroyed. I could not just ride past that. I am sorry, Willa said quietly, about your mother, about all of it. It was a long time ago. But the way he said it made it clear it was not long enough. You should sleep. We ride before dawn. Willa lay down on the bedroll, but sleep felt impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her empty house, the bare rooms, the violation of it. She thought about her mother's jewelry box, not valuable really, just a few pieces, but her grandmother's wedding ring had been in there. The only thing left of her father's mother, who had died before Willa was born. The thought of some thief pawning it, or worse, throwing it away as worthless, made her want to scream. I can hear you thinking, Wade said from across the fire. He was lying on his back, his hat over his face, but apparently not asleep either. How can you hear thinking? You are breathing like you are angry. Willa huffed a laugh despite everything, maybe because I am angry. Good. Wade tilted his hat back to look at her. Anger is useful. It will keep you moving when tired would stop you. You talk like you have done this before, tracked people. I have. He sat up, feeding the fire another stick. Not for stolen furniture, but I have tracked men. Helped the marshal a few times when someone needed finding. Have tracked lost cattle, lost children, lost everything. It is what I am good at. What made you good at it? Wade smiled, and it transformed his face, made him look younger. My grandmother, My mother's mother. She could track a snowflake through a blizzard, she used to say. She taught me to read the land like you would read a book. Every broken twig, every disturbed stone, every blade of grass that bends the wrong way tells a story. You just have to learn the language. Is she still alive? Your grandmother? No, she died when I was 16, but everything she taught me I still use every day. He lay back down, pulling his hat over his face again. Sleep, Willa Whitmore. Tomorrow will be hard. Willa noticed he had used her first name, dropped the formality. She should probably mind, but she did not. There was something about being out here under the stars hunting thieves with a stranger that made normal social rules feel irrelevant. Wade? Thank you for helping me. You have not got your things back yet. Thank me when you do. But Willa was already grateful, in a way that felt too large for words. She closed her eyes and listened to the fire and the wind and Wade's steady breathing, and finally, impossibly, she slept. They rode hard the next day, stopping only to water the horses and check the trail. Wade was right about being able to move faster. The wagon tracks were clear, cutting north through the scrubland, and they were gaining ground. Willa could see it in the freshness of the tracks, the way the disturbed earth had not yet been completely reclaimed by the wind. Around midday, Wade held up a hand and they stopped. He dismounted and walked ahead, crouching by the side of the trail. When he came back, his expression was grim. They stopped here for a while, fed the horses, ate. He handed Willa his canteen. We are maybe 4 hours behind them now. Then we can catch them today. Probably. But Willa, when we do catch them, you need to be prepared. These men stole everything from you. They will not just hand it back because we ask nicely. I know that. She took a drink and handed the canteen back. I can shoot, Wade, and I will if I have to. He studied her for a long moment. I believe you. But shooting a person is different from shooting a target. I need to know you can do it if it comes to that. Willa thought about her empty house, her mother's things gone, the deed to her family's ranch probably crumpled in some thief's pocket. If it comes to that, I can do it. Wade nodded slowly. All right, then let us finish this. They found the wagons as the sun was starting to sink toward the horizon, gilding everything gold. The thieves had made camp in a small canyon, probably thinking they were far enough from Dallas that no one would follow. Willa counted 6 men, just like Wade had said, lounging around a fire, passing a bottle between them. Her furniture and belongings were piled in 3 wagons, and seeing it all there, her entire life reduced to cargo, made rage pulse hot and bright in Willa's chest. Wade pulled her back behind the rocks, where they had taken cover. Here is what we are going to do, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I am going to walk down there and tell them to give it all back. They will probably refuse. They will probably draw on me, and that is when you shoot the one who looks most likely to actually hit me. Willa stared at him. That is your plan? Walk down there and ask them? You got a better one? Yes, we wait until dark and take the wagons while they sleep. And if they hear us, if they wake up, then we are caught in the middle of their camp with no cover and 6 guns pointed at us. Wade shook his head. No, we do this direct, fast, while they're not expecting it. This is insane. This is tactical. He checked his revolver, his movements calm and methodical. You stay up here. You have the high ground and surprise. I'm going to give them a chance to do the right thing, but I am betting they will not take it, so you watch my back. Can you do that? Willa's heart was hammering so hard she felt dizzy, but she nodded. I can do that. Wade held her gaze for a moment, something passing between them that felt important, though Willa could not have named it. Then he stood and walked down into the canyon like he was taking an evening stroll. The thieves did not notice him at first. They were too busy drinking and laughing, congratulating themselves on an easy score. Then one of them, a big man with a red beard, looked up and saw Wade approaching. He stood fast, hand going to his gun. Who the hell are you? The other men scrambled to their feet, bottles forgotten, hands hovering near their weapons. Wade stopped about 20 feet from their fire, his posture relaxed but ready. "I am the man who is telling you to load that woman's belongings back in her wagons and ride them back to her ranch," Wade said, his voice carrying clearly in the canyon. "You took them while she was at her mother's grave. That makes you worse than common thieves. That makes you cowards." Redbeard laughed, and the others joined in. "You got some nerve, boy. You alone? Does it matter?" "Yeah, it matters, because there are 6 of us and 1 of you, which means you are either stupid or crazy." Redbeard's hand settled on his gun. "And either way, you're not leaving this canyon." "Then we have a problem," Wade said, "because I am not leaving without those wagons." Willa, watching from above, had her gun trained on Redbeard. He was the biggest, the loudest, clearly the leader. If shooting started, he would be the most dangerous. Her hands were shaking and she forced them steady, forced herself to breathe. She could do this. She had to do this. "Tell you what," Redbeard said, grinning. "You turn around and walk away, and we will pretend this never happened. You keep pushing, and we will bury you in this canyon, and no one will ever know." "I will know," said a voice from the other side of the canyon, and everyone, including Willa, jumped. A figure emerged from the shadows. Another man, older, with a marshal's star glinting on his chest. And that would make it murder, which I would have to do something about. Marshal, Willa thought, her heart soaring. Wade had gotten the marshal. But Wade looked as surprised as the thieves. He recovered fast, but Willa saw the momentary confusion on his face. He had not known the marshal would be here. "Marshal Parker," Redbeard said, and some of the confidence drained from his voice. "This does not concern you." "Theft concerns me. Murder concerns me. And I have been trailing you boys since Dallas, waiting to catch you with the goods." Marshal Parker walked forward, his hand on his gun. "Now you are going to do what the man said. Load those wagons and drive them back to the Whitmore ranch, or I am arresting all 6 of you right now." The thieves looked at each other, weighing their options. Willa could see the calculation in their eyes. 6 of them against 2 men. Maybe they thought those were good odds. Redbeard's hand twitched toward his gun. Willa fired. She was not aiming to kill, not yet, but the bullet kicked up dust right at Redbeard's feet, and he jumped back with a yell. All 6 men spun toward the rocks where she was hidden. "And there is a 3rd gun up there," Wade called out, his revolver now drawn, and pointed at Redbeard's chest. "So your odds just got a lot worse. What is it going to be?" For a long, tense moment, nobody moved. Then Redbeard slowly raised his hands. All right. We will take the damn wagons back." "Smart choice," Marshal Parker said. He walked forward and started relieving the thieves of their weapons, tossing them in a pile. "Wade, you want to get down here and help me make sure these boys do not try anything stupid?" Wade jogged up to where Willa was hidden first. "You all right?" "I am fine." She was shaking now, the adrenaline crash hitting hard. "I thought you were going to get shot." "I had a plan." "Your plan was terrible." Wade grinned. "Worked, though. Come on, let us get your things." They climbed down into the canyon together. The thieves were sullen and angry as Marshal Parker supervised them loading the belongings back into the wagons properly. Willa walked through it all, taking inventory, and her heart sank. "The jewelry box is not here," she said, turning to Redbeard. "Where is it?" "Sold it already," he said with a nasty smile. "Yesterday, to a trader passing through, got good money for it, too." Willa felt something in her chest crumble. Her grandmother's ring. Gone. She turned away before anyone could see her face. Wade saw anyway. He walked over to Redbeard and said very quietly, "What trader? What did he look like?" "Why should I tell you?" Marshal Parker sighed. "Because if you cooperate, I might mention it to the judge. And because if you do not, I might accidentally forget to watch this young man for a few minutes, and he looks like he would enjoy hurting you." Wade did not contradict this. He just stood there, looking at Redbeard with those gold eyes gone flat and cold, And Redbeard swallowed. Old guy, graybeard, had a wagon full of goods heading east toward Louisiana, that is all I know. When? This morning, early. Wade nodded once and walked back to Willa. We will find him. Wade, you have already done so much. We will find him, he repeated, and there was no room for argument in his voice. Marshal Parker agreed to take the thieves and wagons back to Dallas, with Willa's promise that she would return soon to press charges. You go find that jewelry box, he told her. I will make sure your belongings get back to your ranch safely, and I will post a man there until you return. Make sure no one tries this again. Thank you, Marshal. Thank Wade, Parker said, nodding at the younger man. He is the one who rode into town yesterday evening and told me something was wrong at the Whitmore place. He is the one who tracked these men I just followed. Willa turned to Wade, who suddenly seemed very interested in checking his horse's hooves. You went to the marshal? After I left your place to get supplies, figured we could use the help. You said you were good at tracking. You did not say you were going to get the law involved. Did not think I needed to say it. Getting the law involved is the smart thing to do. Wade swung into his saddle. Come on, we are losing light. If we push hard, we can catch that traitor by tomorrow. They rode east through the night, stopping only briefly to rest the horses. Wade was even more focused now, following signs Willa could not see in the darkness, trusting his instincts and experience. She watched him as they rode, this stranger who had upended his own life to help her, and felt something warm and complicated growing in her chest. Why did you really do this? She asked when they stopped to water the horses around midnight. The truth? Wade was quiet, running his hand along his horse's neck. I told you the truth, what happened to my mother. But that was years ago, and you do not know me. No. He turned to look at her, and even in the moonlight she could see the intensity in his eyes. But I saw you standing on that porch. I saw what they did to you, and I knew what it felt like to be that powerless, that violated. And I thought, maybe this time I could do something about it. Willa's throat tightened. Wade. And maybe, he continued, I saw a woman who was brave enough to stay standing even when everything had been taken from her. Maybe I thought that kind of strength was worth helping. I did not feel very strong. You tracked your own thieves. You shot at 6 armed men. You are still here, still fighting. Wade took a step closer. That is strength, Willa. She did not know who moved first, but suddenly they were closer than they had been, close enough that she could see the way his eyes searched her face, close enough that she could feel the heat coming off him despite the cool night air. Her heart was pounding again, but for an entirely different reason than fear. We should keep moving, Wade said finally, his voice rough, but he did not move. Neither did she. Then a horse whinnied in the distance, and the moment broke. They both turned toward the sound, and Wade's hand dropped to his gun. Someone is close, he whispered. They crept forward on foot, leading their horses, and came over a small rise to see a wagon camped beside a creek. A single old man was tending a fire, his gray beard catching the light. Willa's heart jumped. That is him, she whispered. That has to be him. Wade studied the camp for a long moment. Stay here. I will talk to him. We both will. He looked like he wanted to argue, but thought better of it. They walked down to the camp together, and the old trader looked up with a start, reaching for a rifle. Easy, Wade said, raising his hands. We are not here to rob you. We just want to talk. About what? The trader did not lower the rifle. About a jewelry box you bought yesterday from some men, Willa said, stepping forward. It was stolen from me, from my home, while I was at my mother's grave. The trader's eyes narrowed. That so? They told me they found it in an abandoned house. They lied. Willa fought to keep her voice steady. That box belonged to my mother. Inside it was my grandmother's wedding ring. It has more value to me than you could ever sell it for. I paid good money for it. I will give you whatever you paid, Willa said desperately. Please, Everything else they took I got back, but that box, those things inside it, they are all I have left of my family." The trader studied her for a long moment, then slowly lowered his rifle. He walked to his wagon and pulled out a small wooden box carved with flowers. Willa recognized it immediately and felt tears spring to her eyes. "They told me it was worth $50, the trader said. "I paid them $30. "I do not have $30, Willa whispered. "Everything I own is back in Dallas." The trader looked at her desperate expression and the tears tracking through the dust on her face, and sighed. "Tell you what, I will take that horse you are riding. It is a good mare, worth more than $30 probably, but I'm old and tired, and I do not like the idea of profiting from a woman's grief." "That is the only horse I have left," Willa said, her heart sinking. "She can ride with me," Wade said quietly. "It is only a day back to Dallas." Willa looked at the jewelry box at the horse, weighing what she had already lost against what she was about to lose. But the choice was not really a choice at all. "All right, the horse for the box." The trader nodded and handed her the box. Willa opened it with shaking hands, and there, nestled inside among her mother's few pieces, was her grandmother's ring. She pulled it out and clutched it so hard the band cut into her palm, and the tears came for real now, silent and relieved and exhausted. Wade put a hand on her shoulder, steady and warm. "We got it," he said softly. "We got it all back." They gave the trader the mare and climbed onto Wade's horse together, Willa sitting in front of Wade, his arms around her as he held the reins. She was acutely aware of every place their bodies touched, the solid warmth of him at her back, the way his breath stirred her hair. She held the jewelry box against her chest like it was the most precious thing in the world, because it was. They rode through what was left of the night and into the dawn, not talking, just existing together in the quiet space between sleep and waking. Willa leaned back against Wade's chest and felt his heartbeat steady and strong, and thought about how 2 days ago she had not known this man existed. Now she could not imagine the last 48 hours without him. "Wade," she said as the sun painted the Texas sky pink and gold. "Hmm?" "When we get back to Dallas, after everything is settled," she paused, gathering courage. "Would you want to stay for supper? Maybe more than one supper, maybe many suppers." She felt more than heard his laugh, a quiet rumble in his chest. "That depends." "On what?" "On whether you are asking because you think you owe me or because you want me there." Willa turned in the saddle, awkward but determined, until she could see his face. He looked tired, dust-covered, beautiful in the morning light. "I want you there," she said. "Not because I owe you, though I do, but because somewhere between tracking thieves and confronting armed men and riding all night to get my grandmother's ring back, I realized that I do not want this to be the end of knowing you." Wade's expression softened. "Good, because I do not want it to be the end either. Even though I lost my horse and currently own one gun that belongs to you and am probably about to lose the ranch because I cannot run it alone." "Especially then." Wade shifted the reins to one hand so he could cup her face with the other, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. "You think I helped you just to watch you fail after? I am in this now, Willa Whitmore. If you will have me, I am in this all the way." Willa's breath caught. "That is a very large thing to say to someone you just met." "Then I will say something smaller. Let me help you get the ranch running again. Let me teach you what my grandmother taught me. Let me stay close enough to make sure no one ever takes anything from you again." His eyes searched hers. "Let me court you properly, the way you deserve. And if I said you could skip straight to kissing me, would that be too forward?" Wade smiled, slow and devastating. "Not even a little bit." He kissed her there on horseback in the dawn light, gentle at first, then deeper when she made a small sound, and turned more fully into him. It tasted like dust and possibility, and something that felt dangerously close to coming home. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Willa rested her forehead against his. "We are going to be terrible at proper courting," she said. "Probably." Wade kissed her again, quick and sweet. "But we will try anyway." They rode into Dallas as the town was waking up, past the few early risers who stared at the sight of Wade Vance and Willa Whitmore sharing a horse, both dusty and exhausted, and clearly having been somewhere together. Willa saw Mrs. Henderson sweeping her porch, and the woman's eyes went wide as wagon wheels. By nightfall, the whole town would know. Willa could not bring herself to care. Marshal Parker met them at the sheriff's office. "You found it?" Willa held up the jewelry box. "We found it." "Good. Your things are back at your ranch, and I have Deputy Mills watching the place like you asked. The thieves are locked up pending trial." Parker looked between Willa and Wade, noting their proximity on the horse, and his expression turned knowing. "You two look like you have been through hell." "Just about," Wade agreed. He dismounted first, then helped Willa down, his hands lingering at her waist. "Willa needs to rest. I am going to take her home." "I bet you are," Parker said dryly, but he was smiling. "Whitmore, you need anything else? You let me know." "Thank you, Marshal, for everything." They rode double to her ranch, and Willa's heart lifted when she saw it. The wagons were there, her belongings stacked carefully on the porch. Deputy Mills tipped his hat to them and rode off after confirming everything was accounted for. Wade helped her start unloading, carrying furniture back inside, hanging curtains, rebuilding what had been destroyed. It took all day. By the time the sun was setting, the house looked almost like it had before, maybe a little emptier, a little sadder, but whole again. Willa stood in the middle of the main room and felt tears threatening again, but good ones this time. "I need to go get some things from my place," Wade said, lingering in the doorway like he was not sure if he should stay or go. "But I will be back tomorrow to help with the rest, if you still want me to." "Wade Vance, if you leave without kissing me goodbye, I am going to be very disappointed." He crossed the room in 3 long strides and kissed her like he had been waiting all day to do it again, which he probably had. Willa wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back, pouring everything she felt and could not yet say into it. When they finally broke apart, both flushed and breathing hard, Wade rested his forehead against hers. "Tomorrow," he said. "Tomorrow," she agreed. But tomorrow turned into the day after and the day after that, and soon Wade was spending more time at Willa's ranch than his own. He taught her things her father had never gotten around to teaching her: how to really read the land, how to predict weather, how to manage cattle with limited resources. He helped her fix the barn where one of the thieves had broken a board stealing her horses. He ate supper with her every night and stayed later and later each time, until one evening he just did not leave at all. "The spare room," Willa said, even though they both knew it was a thin excuse. "You can sleep there. It is too late to ride back in the dark." "All right," Wade agreed, even though he had ridden in the dark plenty of times. He slept in the spare room that night and for several nights after, but the distance between them was growing smaller in every way that mattered. They worked side by side during the day, their movements developing the unconscious synchronization of people who knew each other's rhythms. They talked for hours in the evening, sharing stories about their childhoods, their parents, their dreams. Wade told her about his grandmother's people, the Kiowa traditions she had passed down, the way she had taught him to see the world as alive and communicative. Willa told him about her mother's last days, the slow agony of watching her fade, the terrible silence of the house after she was gone. "I think she would have liked you," Willa said one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "Mama, she always said I needed someone strong, someone steady. You're plenty strong on your own." "Maybe, but I like being strong with you better." Wade took her hand, threading their fingers together. They sat like that until the stars came out, not needing words, just existing together in the comfortable silence of people who were falling in love and knew it and were in no rush to force it faster than it wanted to go. But Wade did not kiss her again after that first day back. He held her hand. He stood close. He looked at her like she was the sunrise and sunset combined, but he did not kiss her. And after a week, Willa finally asked him why. Because once I start again, I might not stop, he said honestly. They were in the barn, both of them mucking out stalls, doing the endless work of keeping a ranch running. And you deserve to be courted right. You deserve time to grieve your mother and recover from what happened and not have me complicating everything. Willa set down her shovel and walked over to him, placing her hands on his chest. Wade, I appreciate the chivalry, I do. But I'm not some fragile thing that is going to break. I am grieving. I will be grieving for a long time. But that does not mean I do not also want this. Want you. Wade's jaw worked. Willa. Kiss me, she said, please. I have been patient, I have been proper. Now kiss me like you actually want me and not like I'm made of glass. Wade dropped the shovel and kissed her, hard and desperate, walking her backward until her back hit the barn wall. Willa gasped, and he swallowed the sound, his hands in her hair, her waist everywhere. She pulled him closer, rising on her toes to meet him better. And when they finally broke apart, they were both shaking. Inside, and Willa managed, we should go inside. They barely made it. Wade kept stopping to kiss her again in the yard, on the porch, in the doorway. By the time they reached her bedroom, they were both fumbling with buttons and laces, laughing breathlessly at their own urgency. When they finally tumbled into bed together, the last light of day painting them gold, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Afterward, lying tangled together in her sheets, Wade traced patterns on her bare shoulder and said quietly, I love you, in case that was not obvious. Willa smiled against his chest. It was fairly obvious, but I like hearing it anyway. Your turn. I love you too, she said, tilting her face up to kiss him, in case that was not obvious. It was fairly obvious. Wade pulled her closer, but I like hearing it anyway. They lay there as the room darkened, not bothering to light a lamp, just holding each other in the gentle Texas night. Willa thought about how empty this bed had felt just 2 weeks ago, how empty everything had felt, how impossible it would have seemed that she could be this happy this fast after losing so much. Move in with me, she said suddenly. Officially. Not just sleeping in the spare room and pretending, really move in. Wade propped himself up on one elbow to look at her. That would start some talk in town. Let them talk. They are already talking. Willa ran her fingers through his dark hair. I do not want to waste time pretending to be proper when we could just be together. Life is too short. I learned that when Mama died. It is too short and too hard and too unpredictable to waste any of it on what other people think. You're sure? I am sure. All right then. Wade kissed her forehead. I will move my things over tomorrow. Most of your things are already here. That is true, he grinned. Then I guess I already live here. We're just making it official. Wade moved the last of his belongings to Willa's ranch the next day, combining their households into one. It made sense practically. 2 people trying to run 2 ranches when they could barely manage one between them. But it was more than practical. It was an acknowledgement of what they both knew. This was not temporary. This was the beginning of a shared life. The town did talk, of course. Mrs. Henderson made sure everyone knew that Willa Whitmore and that half-Kiowa cowboy Wade Vance were living together in sin, unmarried and shameless about it. But enough people remembered what had happened to Willa. How Wade had tracked down her stolen belongings, how he had helped her when no one else had stepped up, that the gossip was more curious than cruel. And the ones who were cruel found themselves shut out of businesses and social circles because whatever Dallas, Texas was in 1878, it was still a place where helping a woman in need counted for something. 3 months after Wade moved in, he took Willa into town on a Saturday morning. They hitched up the wagon, now reclaimed and repaired, and rode in together like they did every week for supplies. But this time, Wade steered the wagon toward the small church at the edge of town instead of the general store. What are we doing here? Willa asked. Wade set the brake and turned to her. I know we said we did not care about being proper, and I do not care, not really. But I realized I care about making sure you have my name, making sure if anything happens to me, the ranch is yours legally, making sure everyone knows you are mine and I am yours. He pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it to reveal a simple gold band. It is not fancy, but it is real, and I am hoping you will wear it. Willa stared at the ring, her heart in her throat. Wade Vance, are you proposing to me in a wagon in front of a church? I am. He looked nervous, this man who had faced down 6 armed thieves without flinching. Is that all right? It is perfect. Willa cupped his face and kissed him. Yes, of course, yes. They walked into the church hand in hand and found Reverend Thomas preparing for Sunday services. He looked startled to see them, but smiled when Wade explained what they wanted. They were married right there with the Reverend and his wife as witnesses. No fancy dress or big celebration, just 2 people promising to love each other for as long as they both lived. Willa wore the clothes she had ridden into town in, and Wade still had dust on his boots. But when the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife and Wade kissed her, it felt like the most important moment of Willa's life. They drove home as husband and wife, stopping at the general store on the way to share the news and buy supplies. Mrs. Henderson looked like she could not decide whether to be scandalized or pleased, but eventually settled on pleased, probably because a proper wedding was more socially acceptable than the alternative. By evening, the whole town knew that Willa Whitmore was now Willa Vance, and the speculation shifted from scandal to when they would have children. They are already asking me when I'm going to get pregnant, Willa said that night, laughing as she and Wade lay in bed. Mrs. Henderson asked if we were expecting yet. We have been married for 8 hours. Well? Wade rolled over to look at her, his eyes warm in the lamplight. Are we trying? Do you want to? Eventually, not right now. Right now, I just want it to be you and me. Getting the ranch stable, learning how to be married. He traced her jawline with one finger. But eventually, yes, I want children with you. I want everything with you. Everything sounds good, Willa said softly. Eventually. They spent the first year of their marriage working themselves nearly to exhaustion, building the ranch into something sustainable. Wade sold his property to a family moving west from Tennessee and used the money to buy more cattle, better equipment, a stallion to breed with their mares. Willa learned everything Wade could teach her and proved to have a natural instinct for ranching that even her father had not suspected. Together, they made the place thrive in a way it never had before. They also learned each other in the 1,000 small ways that mattered. Willa learned that Wade sang to the horses when he thought no one was listening, old Kiowa songs his grandmother had taught him. Wade learned that Willa talked to her mother's grave every Sunday, telling her about the week, asking for advice, maintaining a connection that death had not severed. They learned how to fight without cruelty, how to apologize without pride getting in the way, how to make each other laugh even when they were exhausted and frustrated and ready to give up. And they loved each other with an intensity that surprised them both, the kind of love that had been forged in crisis and tested by hardship and come out stronger for it. The kind of love that was a choice they made every day, every morning when they woke up beside each other, every evening when they fell asleep the same way. 2 years after they married, Willa realized she was pregnant. She told Wade one evening after supper, just said it plain while they were washing dishes together like they did every night. I am going to have a baby. Our baby. Wade dropped the plate he was holding. It shattered on the floor and he ignored it, just grabbed Willa and lifted her and spun her around, laughing like she had never heard him laugh before. When he set her down, he was crying, actual tears streaming down his face, and he cupped her face and kissed her with so much tenderness it made her cry too. A baby, he kept saying. We are going to have a baby. Their son was born in the spring of 1881, healthy and strong, with his father's dark hair and his mother's stubborn chin. They named him Thomas, after Willa's father, and Wade held him like he was made of something infinitely precious, rocking him and singing those old Kiowa songs while Willa watched from the bed exhausted and happy and complete. He is perfect, Wade whispered, looking down at his son with wonder. How did we make something this perfect? Practice, Willa said, and Wade laughed. That warm rumble she loved. Thomas became the center of their world, but not in a way that diminished what they had. If anything, having a child made them love each other more, seeing the way Wade gentled himself around this tiny person, seeing the way Willa bloomed into motherhood like she had been waiting for it her whole life. They were a family now, a real family, and the ranch prospered because of it, fed by the love and work they poured into everything they did. 2 years later, their daughter was born, and they named her Clara after Wade's mother. She was tiny and fierce, screaming her way into the world with impressive determination. Wade cried again, holding his daughter, and Willa teased him about being soft, but she loved it. Loved how much he loved their children, how much he loved her. They raised their children on the ranch, teaching them to ride and rope and read the land the way Wade's grandmother had taught him. Thomas grew up quiet and observant like his father. Clara grew up bold and outspoken like her mother. Together they were chaos and joy and endless work, but the kind of work that made life feel full instead of hard. The town of Dallas grew around them, new families moving in, new businesses opening. Wade became known as someone you could trust to track anything, and occasionally he would ride out to help find lost cattle or lost children, or once, memorably, a lost husband who had gotten drunk and wandered off into the scrubland. But he always came home, always to Willa and the children and the ranch that they had built together. Willa visited her mother's grave every Sunday without fail, and now she brought the children with her. She told them stories about their grandmother, about their grandfather, about the Whitmores who had built this ranch from nothing. And she told them about the day everything had been stolen and how their father had gotten it all back. "Why did Papa help you?" Clara asked once when she was 7. "You did not even know him." "Because he was a good man," Willa said, running her hand over her daughter's dark hair, "and because sometimes people help each other just because it is the right thing to do." "And then you fell in love?" "And then we fell in love," Willa confirmed. She looked over at Thomas, who was placing flowers on the grave with careful precision. "Love is not always a thunderbolt. Sometimes it is a choice. Your papa chose to help me when I needed it most, and I chose to love him for it. And then we kept choosing each other every single day." "That is not very romantic," Clara said, disappointed. "It is the most romantic thing in the world, Willa said. "Anyone can fall in love when things are easy. Choosing to love someone when things are hard, choosing to stay and build something together, that is real romance." On their 10th anniversary, Wade took Willa back to the canyon where they had confronted the thieves. It had not been her idea, but he insisted, said there was something he wanted to show her. They left the children with a neighbor and rode out together, just the two of them, like old times. The canyon looked the same, empty and wild. No sign that anything significant had ever happened there. Wade dismounted and helped Willa down, then pulled her toward the spot where they had camped that night. "Do you remember what I said to you here?" he asked. Willa thought back. "You said a lot of things." "I said I saw a woman who was brave enough to stay standing even when everything had been taken from her." Wade took both her hands in his, "And I said that kind of strength was worth helping." "Do you remember what you said?" "I did not feel very strong." "Right, but you were wrong." Wade squeezed her hands. "You were the strongest person I had ever met. You still are. And I wanted to bring you back here to tell you that every day for the last 10 years, I have been grateful that I saw those wagons, that I stopped, that I got to be part of your life." Willa felt tears gathering. "Wade, I have been thinking about what would have happened if I had just kept riding that day, if I had minded my own business, and it makes me feel sick thinking about all I would have missed. You, Thomas, Clara, this life we built." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a necklace, a delicate gold chain with a single small diamond. "This is not much, But I wanted to give you something to mark 10 years. 10 years of choosing each other. Willa let him fasten the necklace around her throat, the diamond resting just above her heart. I love you, she said, her voice thick. I love you so much it scares me sometimes. I love you too. Wade kissed her, soft and sweet. And I'm going to keep loving you for the next 10 years and the 10 after that and however many 10s we get. Deal? Deal, Willa whispered against his lips. They had many more years, as it turned out. They watched their children grow and marry and have children of their own. Thomas married a school teacher from Austin and brought her back to Dallas. Clara married a rancher's son and stayed close to home. Wade and Willa became grandparents 4 times over, and each grandchild learned to ride on the same horses their parents had learned on in the same pastures on the same land. The ranch prospered through good years and survived through bad ones. Wade's tracking skills became semi-legendary, and occasionally strangers would show up asking for help finding something lost. He always asked Willa first, made sure she was comfortable with him leaving, and she always said yes because she knew he would come back. He always came back. They grew old together, their bodies slowing, but their love not diminishing. Wade's hair went gray early, silver by the time he was 50. Willa's hands grew rough and scarred from decades of ranch work. But when they looked at each other, they still saw the people they had been that day in 1878, her desperate and devastated, him determined to help. They still felt that spark, that choice to love, that had carried them through everything. On their 30th anniversary, they took another trip, this time to the trader's camp where they had recovered the jewelry box. The trader was long gone, probably dead, but the creek was still there, still flowing. They made camp beside it, and Wade built a fire while Willa unpacked the food they had brought. Do you ever think about how different things could have been? Willa asked as they sat by the fire, holding hands like teenagers. If those men had not robbed me, if you had not stopped. Every day, Wade admitted, but I try not to think about it too much because I cannot imagine my life without you in it, and thinking about that possibility makes me feel like I am standing at the edge of a cliff. We were lucky, Willa said softly, that we found each other. Luck had nothing to do with it. Wade brought her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles. You were brave. I was paying attention. And we both chose to take a chance on each other. That is not luck. That is fate. I did not think you believed in fate. I did not, until I met you. They made love that night beside the creek under the stars, slow and familiar and still full of wonder after 3 decades. And when they finally fell asleep in each other's arms, Willa thought about how much they had survived, how much they had built, how much they had loved. She thought about her mother's grave and the empty house and the moment her world had ended, and she thought about Wade riding up on his horse, offering help for no reason except that it was right. She thought about tracking thieves and recovering a jewelry box and falling in love in the process. And she thought, not for the first time and not for the last, that sometimes the worst moments of your life could lead to the best ones. That sometimes having everything stolen could lead to gaining everything that mattered. They lived well into their 70s, Wade and Willa Vance, dying within months of each other like couples who have been together so long they cannot imagine existing separately. They were buried side by side in the cemetery outside Dallas, next to Willa's parents, under the big Texas sky they had loved. Their children and grandchildren stood at the grave and told stories about them, about how they had met, about the thieves and the tracking and the way they had built something beautiful out of devastation. And those stories became family legend passed down through generations, the story of the cowboy who tracked down every stolen piece and the woman who was brave enough to let him. Years later, when the ranch finally passed out of family hands, sold to developers who would turn it into something unrecognizable, a great-great-granddaughter went through the attic and found a small wooden jewelry box carved with flowers. Inside was a simple gold wedding band, worn smooth by decades of wear, and a necklace with a small diamond. There was a note, too, written in fading ink and handwriting that had belonged to Willa Vance. "These belong to my grandmother," the note said. "They were stolen from me when I was at my lowest. A cowboy named Wade got them back. Then he gave me everything else. Keep these safe. Remember that sometimes help comes from unexpected places, and that love is always, always worth choosing." The great-great-granddaughter held the jewelry box and thought about the story she had grown up hearing, the romantic tale of theft and tracking and true love. She had always thought it was exaggerated, the way family stories often were. But holding these objects, reading this note, she realized it was all true. Every word of it. She kept the jewelry box, passed it down to her own daughter when the time came, and the story continued generation after generation. The story of Wade and Willa Vance, who proved that sometimes the worst day of your life could be the beginning of the best thing that ever happened to you. And somewhere, in whatever comes after, two souls who had chosen each other every day for more than 50 years were still together, still choosing each other, still grateful for the day Wade Vance saw those wagons and decided to stop. Still grateful for the day Willa Whitmore was brave enough to accept help from a stranger. Still grateful for every moment, every choice, every piece of the life they had built together from the ashes of theft and grief. Because that was the real treasure in the end. Not the furniture or the jewelry or even the ranch. The real treasure was what they had created together. A love that lasted, a family that thrived, a legacy that endured long after they were gone. And that was worth more than anything anyone could ever steal.